Hi, I'm Susan Taylor with Scripps Health in San Diego, California. More and more people are out riding bikes. And according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, every year in the US, folks over the age of 55 are the group with the highest number of bicycle-related deaths. Joining us to talk about ways to keep you safe if you are 55 and older and out there riding your bike are Dr. Walter Biffl. He is a trauma surgeon with the Scripps Clinic Medical Group in La Jolla, California. He is the medical director of trauma and acute care surgery at Scripps Memorial Hospital in La Jolla, California. And Paige Colburn-Hargis. She is the trauma injury prevention coordinator for Scripps Memorial Hospital in La Jolla. Thank you both for being with us.
Thanks for having us, Susan.
So there's been this real big increase in serious bike injuries and deaths among older riders. Why is this?
Well, the biggest part is that people in my age group are out riding bikes more than ever. And it's a great way to stay fit and be active and get to work without getting in your car.
And what's the cause of these injuries, Dr. Biffl?
Well, most of them are solo crashes, people taking a turn too fast, maybe getting distracted. But then there are a large percentage that are caused by collisions with cars and other bicyclists.
I had seen some statistics: hit by cars, 18%, falling off the bike, 45%, hit by another bicycle, 17%.
Yes, and most of these, as you can imagine, are preventable, making yourself visible, following rules of the road.
And what kind of injuries, Dr. Biffle, are you seeing in the emergency room, and how serious are they?
Well, we see injuries of all kinds. The most serious ones are head injuries, and unfortunately, those are some of the most common with both bicycles and e-bikes. But injuries to the face can be disfiguring. Extremity fractures are disabling, and they're painful injuries like rib fractures that you can live with, but nobody wants rib fractures.
Dr. Biffle, talk about the medical issues as you age and how that impacts your bike riding and knowing what your limits are.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that happen to us as we get older. Our reaction time slows down, our vision and hearing get a little duller, our flexibility, our strength, our endurance, all kinds of things affect us, and it gets frustrating. But we have to understand our limitations, know when we're tired, know when we're dehydrated, and know when we're not up to a long ride or an uphill climb. And that'll help us avoid crashing, those solo crashes for various reasons, and also help us be nimble enough to avoid the dangers that are around us.
And Paige, is there an issue with regard to folks in cars hitting bikers? So you've got this distracted driver, maybe they're texting while they're driving, or they're not looking ahead, or the car's parked and they just open the car door without looking around where they are.
The roads are made for people, not just people in cars. And unfortunately, we live in a very car centric culture. And, drivers need to be aware, they have metal that is surrounding them and protecting them. So I would say they hold a greater responsibility on the road to use it wisely.
And then what about e-bikes? Because they're becoming a lot more popular. What kind of injuries are you seeing, doctor, from the folks who are on an e-bike as compared to a regular bike?
Well, we are seeing some injuries that are more severe and in some cases deadlier than what we've seen with regular bicycles. Now, clearly, if you're hit by a car, it doesn't matter whether you're on an e-bike or a regular bike, but the e-bikes go faster. It's closer to what you see with a motorcycle crash than a regular bicycle crash.
On e-bikes, what is it with regard to balance? They say that the center of gravity and the balance is more challenging.
Yes, they're heavier. They're not as maneuverable as a regular bicycle. I think some people, when they start riding them, are taken by surprise by how quickly they accelerate and how long it takes to slow them down.
And then, Paige, how do you stay safe while out biking? What should you be doing and what should you not be doing?
I think that the most important thing is I call them the four B's. So, be predictable, ride predictably, be prepared, make sure that you check your bike for safety before you go out for a ride. Make sure they call it an ABC check. So air, brake, chain. And now with an e-bike, charge. Make sure your bike is fully charged. Make sure that you have practice on that bike. Make sure that you know how that bike handles.
And talk about the rules of the road.
Yeah, so the rules of the road's really important that the same rules that apply to cars also apply to bikes. When we come up to a stop sign, we need to stop. When before we change lanes, we need to signal our intentions. So, whether you can that can be as easy as just pointing in the direction that we have. So making eye contact with drivers and making our intentions clear.
One thing that can be challenging is getting positioned as a bicyclist to make a turn in a multi-lane road. You're generally trained to ride on the right side, but if you're making a left turn, you have to get over to that lane and make sure the cars can anticipate what you're about to do.
And so when you're making that left-hand turn, what should you be doing to make sure everybody around you knows that that's where you're going?
Well, hand signaling is very important, but then getting in the left turn lane, and in some cases, being in the middle of that lane, so there's no confusion about your intentions.
Exactly. And sometimes that can be really intimidating as a cyclist to go out into traffic like that. That is the safest way to do it. However, there are other ways to make a turn. You can stop, get off your bike, press the cross sign, cross in the crosswalk. You can turn, make a right turn, and then when it's safe, make a U-turn so that you can go straight. There's several other ways that you can make that left-hand turn.
And then what about riding a bike on a sidewalk?
When I see someone riding on a sidewalk, what that means to me is that person does not feel safe on the road. And so people have this misconception that riding on a sidewalk is safer. But in fact, if you think about every single driveway that you come to is an intersection, and drivers are not anticipating that a cyclist is going to be there. So I would just say take that into consideration. And often, riding, every city has different rules, but most cities do not allow for bike riding on sidewalks.
And then what happens if you are riding in a neighborhood and there's a lot of driveways? What should you be looking for as you approach each driveway?
Definitely you need to be watching, just looking for taillights, anticipating what might be coming. Um, and obviously driving in the same direction as traffic is also very important. No driver, whether you're in the bike lane or on a sidewalk, is expecting that to happen. So remember, we talked about predictability. That is not predictable behavior.
And then what about riding on a one-way road? Should you be riding on the right or on the left or in the middle?
Well, I'm assuming that there's no bike lane. So if there is no bike lane, the safest place for you to be would be in the center lane. If we're thinking about riding in a neighborhood and there's parked cars, so you're actually, if you're driving next to the curb and then you're kind of coming out and weaving in and out between the parked cars, that's not predictable. Also, riding too far to the right where you're in that door zone, you could easily, you've probably treated them, Dr. Biffl, people that have hit that door and then launched off their bike. So riding in the center lane is often the safest, most visible place to be.
Dr. Biffle, elaborate on what that door zone is. What is that? Is that of somebody in a parked car opening their car door and the person on the bike hits it?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's that area where you're at risk if somebody does get out of their car. And if you're riding alongside a long line of parked cars, it can be difficult to see somebody in the car and know that they're about to open it up.
And when they open it up, what kind of injuries are we talking about there?
Well, those are some pretty dangerous situations where the bicyclist can hit that door and then be launched off of the bicycle. And that's where we see some of the most severe head and facial injuries and even some spinal injuries.
What about riding in a neighborhood with a lot of driveways? What should you be looking for as you approach the driveway?
I'd be looking for any signs of cars backing out, and that's a risk. A lot of people are reliant these days on their backup camera. That's only looking straight behind the car. And if you're coming from the side at a decent rate of speed, they won't see you until there's a collision.
And then what about roundabouts? Where should you be on that roundabout as you're coming into it on the bicycle or the e-bike?
Well, the roundabout is the same rules apply with the car as they do with a bike. So once we go into a roundabout, we're continually moving, and you should stay in the center of that lane. If it's a single lane roundabout, you should be in the center of that lane.
It's important for the bicyclist to remember that there are no bike lanes and there's no stopping in a roundabout. So the bikes and the cars need to merge before they get into the roundabout, and then the traffic flows on through.
How do you increase your visibility when you're out riding a bike?
That's a really great question. And it's super easy to do. So, because drivers typically don't hit things that they see. So, making ourselves as bright as possible, um, wearing brightly colored clothing, having flashing lights, putting different lights. So, we know there was a visibility and traffic study done, and they said that black, you're virtually invisible, blue, 55 feet, red 79 feet, yellow 121 feet, white 180 feet, and the winner is that neon green color at 426 feet. So make
Thanks.
yourself as brightly colored as possible. We have, when we do our outreach events with Scripps, we have these nice little slap bracelets. We encourage people to put those on their ankles. They bend up. And so that when you're spinning in traffic, that you're moving your feet, and that's also another signal to be seen. We also have at our giveaways, we have little light up reflectors and bike lights and things like that. This is my helmet. It actually has a flashing light that comes off. You can pull it off and recharge it and put it back on. There's other new helmets that have even turn signals integrated into them. So there's great technology.
Dr. Biffle, talk about the importance of a good fitting helmet.
I think the helmet is the most important piece of equipment we have getting on a bicycle. The brain injuries are the most debilitating and lethal of all the injuries. So it's critical to have not only a good fitting, but a high quality helmet that is made for the speed you're going. E-bike helmets are more like motorcycle grade helmets, and regular bicycle helmets are made to protect the head.
This is a standard bike helmet. So it's kind of got that aerodynamic feel. And that is just used for cycling. And then there's also multi-sport helmets. These helmets can be used for biking, for skateboarding, for scootering, for roller skating. It's dual certified by the Consumer Product Safety Commission and the ASTM. And then there's also, this is a multi-sport helmet, and it has MIPS. So MIPS is multi-impact positioning system, which adds another layer for you, so that when your helmet hits the ground, it actually will help absorb some of those crash forces and slow down the speed, so your brain doesn't get that contra coup effect of shaking back and forth. So that adds another layer of support. And, when you're wearing a helmet, it's really important to wear it properly. So we want to make sure that we fit it on our head. We have like the 222. So you want to make sure that it's down and it's about 2 fingers above your eyebrows, not back here. It's not a hat, because we're leaving that front of our head exposed. Make sure we strap the strap. And then we want 2 fingers over the ears. This helps keep the helmet stable on our head, and 2 fingers right here below that strap. So that keeps it firm, because we want that helmet to stay in place if we do crash. So a helmet is just like a seatbelt. We hope that we never have to use it, but we also hope that it becomes a habit for you, just like when you get into a car and you buckle that seatbelt, that the same thing before you get on a bike, this is just part of your kit. And it's really important to protect our most important asset, our brain.
How should you let others know what you were doing when you're on the bike? You're turning left, you're turning right, you're coming through an intersection. What should you do to make sure everybody knows what you're doing?
That's a great question. And it goes back to that being predictable. So really just signaling your intentions about what you're going to do. So I think when we learned the different hand signals, but really it can be as simple as waving and pointing as far as which way you're going. So just having that communication between other road users is really important.
Any final thoughts, Doctor?
I would say that bicycle safety is important. We want people to get out and enjoy their bikes and stay fit, but be careful because our capabilities do erode as we get older, and we have to compensate for that.
Paige, any final thoughts?
I really encourage everyone to just become informed. You can check out our website, take a class, you can email us, just learn the skills that you need, practice, and just it's such an enjoyable sport. And we really encourage you to go out there and give it a try.
And prevention is key, right, to keeping you safe.
Prevention is absolutely key.
Thank you both for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
If you want more information about how to stay safe on the road, if you are 55 and older and out there riding your bike, just click on the link or go to scripps.org/videos. Want more critical information about your health? Please subscribe to our Scripps Health YouTube channel and follow us on social media at Scripps Health. At Scripps, we're here for good. I'm Susan Taylor. Thanks for joining us.